Please listen carefully.
Hi, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
And welcome to Practical Bass, where each week we look at a topic of interest to you, the working bass player, and we dissect it, take it apart, and look at it from a few different angles, and hopefully use our experience and use what we've learned from fellow listeners and from the world of bass playing to help elevate your gigs and gear. You can find us on practicalbass.com on the web, and we would love to hear from you, our listeners. The thing that makes this all worthwhile is the feedback and the connection that we have with you. So we hope you will feel free to drop by the website and drop us a line. Let us know what you like. If you have suggestions for topics or things that you'd like to hear about, we would definitely love to hear from you. You can also find us on social media. Look for Practical Bass on Facebook. You can also find us on Google+, on Twitter, even on Instagram. And we'd love to see pictures of your gear, your rig, your bass rigs. We're definitely into that and love to hear from our listeners in any way, shape, or form. Dave and I look at all the inputs that come in that way, and we really enjoy having that relationship with you guys. If you are a podcast fan, you'll be happy to know that it's easy to subscribe to Practical Bass, as easy as with any podcast. Simply call up the Podcasts app on your iPhone or your iPod if you have one of those. You can look at iTunes on your Mac computer. You can use Google Play Music on most devices, including Android phones. You can also use Stitcher Radio on any platform. Simply search for Practical Bass, and when our black and white logo comes up, use the subscribe link to subscribe to the podcast, and that will get a new episode delivered to you every week with the latest topics that Dave and I have been pondering on. And this week we've been pondering on a very hot topic, Dave.
Very hot.
Yeah, that was the segue.
Very hot.
It's up to you now. It's all up to you.
I'll take it. I'll take the ball. I just dropped it. Let me pick up the ball.
We're trained professionals here, ladies and gentlemen. You are in the hands of professionals.
I've got it. No, I picked up the ball. I have it now. It's a hot potato. We I think as we close in for the summertime, what better time than to talk about the outdoor gig?
Yeah. Now that things are cooling off, let's talk about the hot summer gig.
As we enter into fall, let's reflect. This is more of a reflection.
It is. No, it is. I mean, I think it kind of takes one of those, a good steamy summer to kind of make you think about what the outdoor gig, really means. Like what do you do for that?
Right.
Right. So in terms of things that you do differently for a gig, an outdoor gig, are there differences in like the rig that you use? Or, I mean, how do you approach that from an equipment standpoint?
Sure. I mean, I think, just like any other venue that we play at, we pack a little bit differently. But when it comes to the outdoor side, I think there are certainly a couple of key things. I mean, for me, it's a lot of accessories. Like it gets accessory heavy.
Yeah.
Right. I start to think about the length of the cables because you're outside.
Yeah.
So you always have to think that there's, a power source that's further.
Right.
Maybe a PA that's going to be further.
And sometimes the stages tend to be a little bigger outside too, right? Like you're not crammed into a corner in some bar or something like that. It's
right. Sometimes you're just on like flat land, right?
Yeah,
like just outside in some corporate event that's got whatever. Like you're just in this part of the yard, and then there's like
are these corporate events like guys with bows and arrows? Like
yes. Yeah,
doing
very much so.
Trust sessions. They're like falling backwards off ladders while you play.
Yes. Those are the ones we play at. Yes, you're right. Did you go to one of those?
I did not. I would have been scarred for life. I did that. I'd fall backwards and they'd be like, he's heavy. We're not going to catch him. And I'd die.
I mean, I'm not going to say, like, I've definitely played some, vineyards where they're just like, this is your spot that you play at. and it's just flat land, heat, and a lot of land.
It's like an area. Here's your
It's
area.
an area. This is your spot. They mark it off with like duct tape. That's where you play. Yes, I mean, but in general, I'm going to think about powers, chords, all of that, where things are going to sit. Certainly, there's small pieces, right? Like the windscreen for the mic is critical.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's part of my outdoor rig.
Yeah.
Because that'll burn you if you're singing.
Right. Having that like whoosh, that like boomy whoosh that goes through the PA is so awesome.
Right. To
Great
add
for the speakers.
To add to the boominess of my voice.
Yeah.
Right. It's perfect. I've got the fan is critical.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the fan and the extension cord that goes to the fan.
Oh, you know what's sad? I forgot. I just did a gig this last Saturday. I did a gig outdoors. It was like 5 to 8 p.m.
Yep.
And so, it was still pretty warm. Like there was all the setup, of course, which happened at the height of the afternoon, right? From about 2:30 to 4:30 or 4.
Right.
Like we're setting up.
Oh, and it settles in.
Yeah. And then, and then playing the gig, you're already like a big ball of sweat. I completely forgot to bring my fan. And I have like one of those, it's like a shop vac kind of fan.
Sure.
Like, the kind that like you can angle different ways and it's made to like cool or dry paint or whatever. And it's like made out of this heavy, heavy duty plastic. Great for traveling. But anyway, I forgot it. And so, yeah. No breeze for me.
Yeah. I use one that's called the Hawaiian Breeze.
Yeah.
It's literally a Hawaiian. I mean, I've never been to Hawaii, but as what I would imagine is a Hawaiian Breeze, because it says it mostly, and it has like the tilt. It's really small and metal. It's got like the vintage look to it, like that sort of vintagey thing. But it is a monster, and it's great. And I've kicked it.
Like
I've knocked it over.
tunnel.
Yeah, and I just put it like right under me. That's it. I just want the upward,
And it really works when you're using, like when you're rocking the Marilyn Monroe 7-Year Itch dress too.
Sometimes, for that gig.
When you got to make an impact.
You do. You have to get in roll. Don't just be a bassist, be in roll.
Right.
Yeah. Towel, all those kind of odds and ends. I also, because, I travel somewhat light, I have to like think about like making sure that, I've got an amp stand.
If listeners have not picked up on this, like if you haven't listened to a bunch of these episodes, and we hope you guys do, like go crash the back archives of Practical Bass, you're going to find out that Dave is like a master of traveling light. Like that's his mantra, is like minimalism, like not as like it's not an affect, like you just have an affinity to do that. So like
it's an obsession and to a fault, for better or for worse.
So having to bring more things for the summer gig, it's got to kill you.
It really hurts.
One gig at a time. It like sucks a little piece of you.
It's like, oh, this is a 2-trip gig.
Like the Princess Bride. Like I've just sucked away 1 year of your life.
That's exactly what I do.
How does that feel?
Because then I need to bring like the amp stand that like raises it, because you don't want it on the ground or wherever it's at. But yeah, I think in general, like I'm just thinking about how like with my sound, the air needs to be pushed out, right? Because you're in the middle of open space, and that can be a real challenge. So, that's kind of my deal with the outdoor gig. What's your experience look like?
Yeah, I mean, so, I cannot agree strongly enough with the idea of like, have your fan and your towel, like, you have your hot weather, like here's your hot weather, like survival kit.
Right.
And, like I said, I did this gig and for whatever reason, I spaced and I left those things and, and it was miserable not being able to just like, towel off or whatever. And, it's just one of those things, like just those little things that can help you kind of stay on top of the rough part of the gig so that you can really concentrate instead on the good part of it.
That's right.
And not having those really, I mean, for me, it made a difference. I mean, the gig went well, but like was thinking the whole time, this could be like 15% better.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
because the difference between like luxury and not luxury is like a fan and a towel and
Yeah.
a bottle of water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just bring the fan and the towel and the bottle of water, and
Yeah.
then you've got luxury.
If you could just have those things, everything would be great.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, those absolutely, I think those are important. And for me, I usually also address it by taking a bigger rig. Again,
Yeah.
this kind of flies in the face of the travel light thing, but
Sure.
you're outside. You've got the problem is outside. Just from a sound perspective, if the listeners can picture this, bass frequencies get accentuated in smaller spaces, right? They collect those frequencies collect in corners, right, and bounce off walls.
Right.
That's what accentuates those frequencies, and that's why you have to be careful when you're in a small venue to not to over crank it, right? Not to crank your bass up too much, because you're going to force everyone else to get in a volume war,
Right.
as much as say a drummer who is not holding back at all. So you have to be careful of that. But outdoors, it's literally the exact opposite. Like those bass frequencies, there's nothing for them to bounce off. So they basically float away. And so, if you really want to have some oomph, there's only two ways to do it. And one way is through the PA, right? And then the other way is with your bass rig.
Right.
And the rig that you bring on the stage is really not going to carry out to a whole audience in most cases. I mean, I don't know what people are carrying out there, but I imagine if you really wanted to carry out with your rig on stage, that rig would be huge. Like there'd be no room for anybody else.
Right.
So
Right.
it's mainly for being able to feel myself on the stage. You know what I mean? Like feel some heaviness, some weight to the bass. That's why I bring the bigger, and the bigger rig for me, it's not a big deal. It's like, I normally have a 2x10 cabinet and a amp that I bring for just about any gig that's in a smaller medium venue. If I'm outside, I add right away, I add a 15 to the bottom of it, and and crank it up past where I normally would for a normal gig. And it's done a fabulous job of keeping up. I'm a fan of the Mark bass stuff. That's what I have. So I've got, a 15, and then I've got the 2x10, and then their 800-watt tube amp. And it's phenomenal. I mean, it definitely kicks butt on stage. Yeah.
So, and this is probably something that's going to make you cringe, but sometimes, like for me, I'll be at a gig where there is no sound, right? It's a vineyard or whatever it is. Like it's some venue where there's no sound guy, there's no PA. The PA is really designed just for vocals.
Yeah.
Right. Like I can't drive my bass through it. It's not designed for that.
Yeah. So in other words, like you might be working with a band that's got like those little stalks.
Right.
Right. Like the Fishman stalks or something like that.
Right. Or even maybe just like 12s that are hanging out there.
Yeah.
Or something.
Or like a small Fender Passport or like this is like little gig, like a little courtyard or something like that.
Right. But you're still in open air.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then as a bassist, like what I'm challenged with is like, okay, do I put my rig behind me, which means that everybody on stage is going to get washed out.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I'm going to crank that bad boy out, or do I put it to the side of me or in front of me?
Oh yeah.
And it's like a whole placement thing.
Yeah. Like you'd have options like, like put a cabinet out front or something like that. Like, and that way have some projection that is not, like everyone in the band doesn't have to hear it full on.
Right.
But you get some of the sound out to the audience that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets a little tricky,
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're kind of creating a subwoofer out front, more or less. Yeah. That's definitely a way to do it. I mean, my personal feeling is outdoor gigs, like, just doing sound as an independent guy and doing it for bands and stuff like that, my life changed when I finally had bought up, years ago to like a decent system with, some subwoofers and the whole deal.
Right.
And having those made the biggest difference in running sound. Like it allowed me to the bass didn't have to get as loud on stage. I could put those subwoofers out front and let them serve the audience.
Yeah.
Right. And, I personally think that if you're going to have an outdoor venue, you have to have within reason. Like if it's a band, like
right.
I don't mean for like an acoustic guitar player who's playing, classical in a vineyard, like a small vineyard courtyard.
But if the whole band is putting out sound.
If it's a whole band, in my mind, you have to have subs and then some full range speakers. And the point of that is not to be loud. The depth is what you need to carry.
Right.
Like, because again, people key in, we've talked about this in previous episodes. People key in on those low frequencies. And if they don't hear them, the band's going to sound wimpy. Like they might not even think that consciously.
Yeah.
But they come away with this idea that, it didn't really move me because they didn't get that.
Yeah.
They didn't get that feel out of it.
I think there was even like somebody that responded to one of our episodes and talked about, I think he was West Coast. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he said that in their band, they invested in like a serious subwoofer that like changed his life.
Yeah. Like they basically, I wish I could remember his name, but it may have been one of the guys who wrote into us. I don't want to say a name and then have it be wrong. So, so our apologies to the person who wrote in, but, I think the deal was that he basically travels light by carrying no amp.
Yeah.
At
It was a traveling light episode. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just basic chords.
He runs like his bass through, whatever direct or through effects or whatever, and then straight out to the PA, and like I assume he gets back some through the monitor feed, like the full back on stage, and then the rest of it's going out through the PA, and he just lets the sound guy take care of it. And I think that's brilliant. And if you're going to do that outdoors, I mean, it totally makes sense, because then you can, outdoors, you can have that light be traveling light,
right?
But you're really relying on the PA at that point. So in terms of the outdoor gig, you've got to have like the lows have got to be there one way or the other, and you can't necessarily just get by with, a small, a small bass rig and just hope that it's gonna work for I think for anything but the most intimate kind of outdoor venues. Sure. Another thing to think about is how you deal with your sound, like the quality of your sound, right? Like, I mean, my approach to this has been, I turn it up,
right?
I mean, not to be like, I don't want to be a Philistine about it or anything, but like, I have a sound that I'm pretty happy with, right? Whether it's at a low volume or medium volume or high volume, within reason, I can pretty much just turn up my amp, and then I'll a lot of the times I'm playing active basses, and so I will usually be using the EQ on my bass to deal with slight adjustments to the sound, but I really just kind of turn up. Like my EQ is usually flat on my amp, and I'm doing it with the bass. That's just how I roll, I guess. I mean, maybe I might goose the lows just slightly, but really, when you turn up, you generally don't have to do much of that anyway, because of the way the natural curve of sound, the way our ears hear things.
Right.
If there's like audio guys out there, they'll know the Fletcher Munson curve. But anyway, it's kind of about that. Like as you turn it up, the lows kind of become more apparent anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I have fun with it, and maybe I'm doing it all wrong, but I enjoy, like, I start with boosting my lows a little bit.
Yeah.
Before I boost my volume, I hit the lows. So I'm like, this is like my one time where I get, this week that I get to like rock out and like, really get kind of dirty with it.
Have a huge gut rumbling.
Yeah.
I'll
start there. I might throw in some highs just to like balance it out. and then I'll hit the volume if I need to. But
Yeah.
it's a little self-indulgent.
But it is fun.
I mean, it's outside. It's just like, it's like when you're in grade school, they're like, yeah, time to go play outside.
Yeah.
It's that freeness, that liberating, like, we're outside.
Run free.
Here's my lows.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can kind of let it hang out a bit. I mean, honestly, that is one of the nice things about those outdoor stages.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that, like, the Ampeg SVT, like, that's what you see at all the festival gigs.
Exactly.
Big 8x10 behemoth. You're never going to cart that into your, like, average,
restaurant bar.
Yeah, like a nightclub. You'd be crazy to do that in most cases. Right. But there it totally makes sense.
Yeah. So are there any other areas to consider when you're playing an outdoor show?
Yeah, I mean, when I think outdoors, I'm always thinking summer, right?
Right.
Like my immediate
Sure.
The immediate thing that I think about is like the May to September slog. Well, here in Virginia, right? It's going to be different in other areas of the country.
Sure.
Here in Virginia, like our summer, it's basically about May to September or so is where things really are pretty hot.
Yeah. And it's humid as well here.
And humid, yeah. I mean, there are worse places for sure in terms of humidity. I mean, we're mid-Atlantic, and I imagine if you're down in Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, it's even more so. But
sure.
We definitely get our fair share of the humidity here. So, we've talked about rigs, right? How you deal with this equipment wise, what you bring, but we should talk about good habits to be in when you're in an outdoor situation. And one of those that's like the easiest thing to fall or run afoul of is hydration.
Right.
That can be the ruin of any performer who has to work outside. You have to stay hydrated. And, really what that means is it's water, not alcohol. I mean, people think, oh, if I drink a beer and it's a light beer, oh, it's basically water. Well, it isn't. The alcohol does have an effect on you. It's not that the alcohol is going to dehydrate you. That's kind of an old wives' tale. I think modern medicine has pretty much disproved that. Like alcohol's not really a diuretic or anything like that. But the problem is the alcohol dulls your ability to recognize other problems that you may be having because you haven't been hydrating enough.
Right.
And, you might say you're going to forget to put sunscreen on during the set break or, who knows, some other choices that you make may not be good ones.
Right.
Right. And that's what you have to watch out for. Like, you have light beers. It kind of, now doesn't seem like such a bad idea to have a couple shots of bourbon or whatever, because you're with friends in this outdoor area or whatever the case is.
That happens?
I don't know. Apparently. Yeah. I never touch this stuff.
Right.
Which is the biggest lie. I have like 8 different bottles of bourbon up in the liquor cabinet. That's my jam. So, but yeah, that's the biggest mistake that I see people make again and again is just not being hydrated. Now that is one thing we did well at the gig where I famously forgot my fan and towel this past weekend. I did make darn sure to just keep drinking water like it was going out of style. And honestly, that act, it kept me going. I mean, I didn't feel bad the next day in any way. And I think that helped. And, it's going to sound dumb, but, just like that stupid song from the 90s or whatever, Sunscreen, it is real. That struggle is real. You got to use the sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that happens to me though consistently. I've not found a way around this. Is I guess that you could, do this with something horrible looking like zinc oxide or something.
Right.
But when I use sunscreen or whatever, I have to put a little on, on my forehead and face or whatever, so I don't turn into a lobster there. But the problem is, I'll sweat a lot at a summer gig. And what that means is that stuff is it is going to end up in
Yeah.
my eyes at one point, and it burns like crazy.
So you could use like the sweatband, like the headband sweatband.
Yeah, I've never been a sweatband guy.
I mean, maybe
it would make I
maybe
don't
it's
know.
time.
I
Maybe
would
it's a new
feel-
you.
I would feel like Arnold and Welcome Back, Kotter, or
Right.
something like, Mr. Kotter, Mr. Kotter, oh. I don't know if anybody listening is old enough to know that, but
There's also like another side to it. I don't know if you've ever there are gigs that are being played in the like the fall, like right,
yeah,
or maybe early spring that are just turning. Those like super cold gigs
yeah,
where you could see your breath,
yeah.
where you realize like this was an event that was planned, maybe just on the edge.
And the weather didn't quite get to where they wanted, or like,
Right.
oh, it's like it was great at like 3 p.m, but now it's 6:30.
Yeah, the sun's down.
The sun's down, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't try those speedy bass lines then.
Yeah.
It just all slows down.
oh yeah.
So I have I use like the cheapo gloves that I cut the tips off of.
oh, good move.
Very like 80s like, but
yeah,
that's key. Keeps the rest of the hand warm.
yeah.
Hand warmers in the pocket of like a sweatshirt
Yeah.
or whatever I'm wearing for the gig,
Well, and what's cool is like, you only have to do that for one hand, like your
Right.
left hand, your fretting hand, or
Yeah.
whatever your fretting hand is. For us, it's left.
Right.
You could wear a full glove,
Right.
You know,
could,
as long as it's kind of a tight glove, not a
Yep.
like you can't have one of those like,
like a snow
a
glove.
gigantic snow glove.
like a ski glove, right?
That won't work.
Unless if you're trying to really deaden the sound.
Yeah,
Unless if you're really trying to like,
but like a neoprene glove or something like that would work.
yeah.
I don't know if that would keep your hand
Yeah.
warm. It's got to be better than nothing, though, right?
Yeah. But I think this just goes to the topic of like just dressing appropriately
Yeah.
for the gig, right? Just
Yeah.
know what you're going to do. And if it is a really cold gig, like, yeah, it's not a bad idea to have like a cup of coffee or like some like something, whatever it is to like keep you
Yeah.
warm.
And do what your mom said, bring a sweater.
Bring a sweater, cover your
jacket.
head, cover your head. Your heat's going to travel out. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Don't die.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely I second the water thing too. I mean, there's some gigs that they give you free like a ton of water, right? Because
Yeah.
the venue's concerned about your health.
Right.
Just super cool. It doesn't always happen. So
Right.
I just never, I always travel a little like soft cooler with a bunch of water.
Yeah. Definitely, make that part of your plan. Because what you don't want is to have somebody, suffering from heat exhaustion or sunstroke or something like that.
And hook a bandmate up. If you've got
Yeah.
a 12 or a water,
Yeah.
man,
Spread the
you're
love.
like, you're the guy.
Spread the love. Yeah. And I think one of the key things about the hydration too is like you can, it may not seem like that at the time, but even in a cooler gig, like when it's
Yeah.
not super hot during the height of summer, you could still get dehydrated,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're at a big stage, you might be a little more active or whatever. And, again, don't lose sight of the fact it's not just about the temperature. Being hydrated is just keeps your body ready to perform.
And it's not uncool because you've seen all the coolest musicians drink water on stage.
They've always
so
got water, except for the ones where it's vodka and they just don't tell you.
uh,
I just undid your point.
it's
The point about
don't
the
even
water.
worry about it.
That was the right point. The water point.
The
was
water
right
point was what we were getting at. Or
Don't
just
do the vodka.
whatever.
Not
Whatever.
smart.
You know what? We're take it or leave it. That's our advice.
Exactly. All right. Well, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this discussion about outdoor gigs. This is one of many, many topics that we've covered here on Practical Bass. This is actually, as we sit here, this is the 25th episode that we've recorded, although our numbering may be off now because I think we had a number 0 and we had a two-parter just recently, just last week. So, so
25-ish.
This is about halfway through a year. We've done a half year of these recordings. And the thing that we love the most is that, people are responding, that we get we get mail, we're getting reactions from bass players who are out there. That is really what makes it all worthwhile. I mean, we hope that you don't just consider yourself like, one of a nameless mass of people. Definitely get in touch with us. You can visit our website, practicalbass.com. We would love it if you would subscribe. If there's one thing that you can do that would make us super happy, it would be to subscribe to the podcast. All you have to do is go visit the website at practicalbass.com, hit the subscribe link for instructions, and it's really easy. If you've got the podcasts app on your iPhone or your iPod, you can use iTunes on your Mac computer. You can use Google Play Music on Android devices or really just about any platform. Also Stitcher Radio for any platform or any one of a number of other podcatching apps. Just search for Practical Bass, and when our logo comes up, hit the subscribe link, and you're going to get a new copy, a fresh episode delivered to you every single week. And it comes straight from the warped minds of me and Dave, your friendly neighborhood Practical Bass hosts. So I guess from the Practical Bass Studios, a half year in, I want to thank you guys. And until next time, this is Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
This has been Practical Bass.
Thanks for listening.
This will work with the endless summer of global warming.
We're preparing you for the doomsday.
The podcasts will live long past their recorded date, so the kids of the 2040s and 2050s.
Yeah, when they're like 30 years deep into like outdoor gig playing.
we'll have long passed on and been like, enjoy your summer.
To be etched in stone.
The endless summer. Oh, God.